We are back and we are live. It is Fight IQ presented by RotoWire. Here to talk UFC 277, our main event, or I should say two main events. We got two title fights to look forward to. The headliner, of course, is the champ, the A side, and don't even forget it, Juliana Pena. She takes on the UFC featherweight champion, Amanda Nunes. And for the interim flyweight title, Brandon Moreno taking on Kai Kara-France. I am your host, Daily Fantasy Sniper. Actually, I dropped that name like a year ago. Wow, that was old school. Sniper MMA is what I go by now because I just like to talk fights with you guys. Here with me, as always, is one person, and we'll get to our guest in a second, but Joe Sunsu. How you doing, buddy? Did you enjoy your UFC Long Island experience?
Right up until the main event. And the main event, not only did it let us down, it cost me a fair amount of ducats, I have to say, since I was extremely heavy on Ortega. But I have to say, there's good and there's bad in this world, and I benefited greatly from what happened last week with Blades. I was naked Blades in a lot of lineups, and that ended up helping me.
Don't say naked Blades ever again.
Yeah, I'll kind of retract that. Well, it's better than saying I had a lot of wood. So yeah, I was naked Blades, and that helped me out a lot. So, 6 to 1, half dozen of the other. It's all karma. Let's at least get two main events that finish, in the octagon without an injury. The right way. I'll be happy for that. And in all honesty, I think that people are besmirching some of these prelims. I think there's some really interesting prelims here.
You stole my thunder, damn it.
Yeah, and sorry. And if you do your homework, I could certainly see some dogs barking here. So we'll get into that.
Yeah, there are 13 fights. I think in my fight picks, I think I have 9 finishes predicted. I think we're in for a really fun week. But no more ignoring the elephant in the room. As you guys can clearly see, Chris not with us this week. Taken a month off, filling in. Stepping in for his first podcast ever, and this is a good show to do that in. It is our guy RBQs. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing great. Really excited to be here, and obviously, there's arguably nothing I love more than talking fights and talking about DraftKings, and so combining the two, I'm thrilled to be here and to get into it. And yeah, I have a feeling this card is going to be fantastic, top to bottom. Hot take, I may actually be more excited to see how some of these fights play out because there's been a lot of hype this week around some of these debutantes in the UFC. And so, I may be more excited to talk about that than I am the two championship fights.
There's some good. I should have done your accolades up front. I'll go back. If you don't know who RBQs is, you see him on plenty of leaderboards, plenty of takedowns, currently on Roto Grinders, ranked 35th in the MMA standings, which I know it's above me. No, Joe's got you. No, Joe, you're at 12.
Yeah, I used to be at 3, and then
I don't play
a lot of the players from other sports got involved, and they have bankroll and they have no day jobs.
Yeah,
as the three of us can relate to. When you're sitting on a 7-figure bankroll and you don't have a day, that's sour grapes. No, those guys deserve everything they get. Sour grapes.
I've met a bunch of them at live finals. Most of them are good dudes, so I won't besmirch most of them and get me off podcasts. I can tell you,
and they're not anything what you would think of when you picture a big swinging dick in DFS. It is the exact opposite, of what you would think.
The first time you meet them, and then you get in the room, you're like, oh, this is about right.
Yeah.
So,
good guys.
Anyway,
pretty much all in good guys.
Yes, for the most part, very good dudes. All right, guys in chat, welcome. Drop in comments, questions, all that good stuff. Before we get to the fight, I have to make sure to tell you to go to rotowire.com/free for a 10-day free trial to all their premium content. No credit card required. Let's get to the fights. First up is Orion. God, these names this week, for whatever reason, I don't. The next fight, I might just say the guy with a long name and the Ukrainian. I don't think I'm going to say their names. Anyway, we got Orion COSQUE at 8,800 taking on Blood Diamond at 7,400. Thank God he goes by Blood Diamond. COSQUE's minus 215. Blood Diamond plus 185. Q's, you were the guest. Start us off this week.
So I was going to drop like a really heavy take right off the bat and say that I was interested in playing absolutely 0 shares of Blood Diamond until COSQUE missed weight today. And then I started to play this fight out in my head, and I said, man, like originally you could argue this sets up similarly to the Phil Rowe fight. He goes out there, he hunts takedowns, COSQUE does, he lands them successfully, and if he can't get him out of there in the first round, maybe he gets his head knocked off somewhere deep into the second. And, I in the back of my mind, I said, well, this is Blood Diamond. I mean, we have no evidence he has any get-up game whatsoever. So I was going to come right out there despite the minus 240 inside the distance line and just like fade the guy outright because I just don't really want to invest. Every lineup to me is an investment. I don't really want to invest too much in this guy long term. Now I feel like I have to because, as we know, bad weight cuts, they can lead to kind of getting clipped, being chinny in there. And so I still feel like I've been looking at the lines. I feel like the line has actually moved even further towards COSQUE since the weigh-ins. I still feel like he goes out there and smothers this guy, but I'm not sure. I can't be certain he finds a submission in round 1, and then beyond there, it's anyone's guess, right? So as far as DraftKings is concerned, I'm going to end up playing a decent amount of both these guys. I'm probably going to be overweight on both these guys. I don't see Blood Diamond projecting for a particularly large amount of ownership at this stage, and so in my mind, I have to say to myself, how do I get any kind of advantage? And with the fact that this is the curtain jerker, with the fact that this has one of the higher ITD lines on the slate, I think it's a great one to be overweight right off the bat. And in particular, maybe a fight to consider going all in single entry type formats, along with like the Lewis Pavlovich fight. Fights like that profile really, really well in those type of formats where you don't have to be quite as contrarian. You can be smart contrarian, and I'm not sure this is going to be a heavily owned fight. I don't think COSQUE projects. Maybe you guys have a better idea. I don't think COSQUE projects for too much ownership at this stage, and maybe it's lowered by the weigh-ins. So at this rate, I'm gonna target this fight pretty heavily.
I do think he projects for a little bit of ownership. I think not the most expensive. His price it's not brutal. I think I've seen around 25-ish% is I'm not looking at it, but that's what I think it is. And for what it's worth, I'm more on the COSQUE side, and I'll probably be over there and under the Blood Diamond, but I'll probably hint at the dogs I like more, which is why I'm under Blood Diamond. I'm taking a couple stands that are still freaking me out, and I might back off them. I have one stand that I really don't know how I feel about it. I'm gonna need somebody to talk me out of it. But when we get there, Joe, I'll let you yell at me. But what do you have in this fight?
Okay, so a couple of things. One is I'll take the over on the 25% for a couple of reasons. One, a good friend, Brett Apley, Daily Fan MMA, gave out COSQUE as his tournament play on Mayo Media Network. I'm giving Brett a shout out because he gave me one in his pod. Although I'm giving him a much nicer shout out than he gave me. He picked COSQUE.
Wait, the amount of crap you talk about all of us, you don't get to say those things.
That's fine.
We're all midgets. We have receding hairlines. Whatever.
You're kind of short. In any case,
5'9".
Yeah, so
giant.
5'9". I was in 3rd grade. Okay, so let's talk about this. So the way that I've traditionally handled missed weights is I will increase my exposure to the fighter who's missed weight. And I know he missed weight. I don't know how much he missed weight by. Maybe one of you guys can tell me how much
he came in 172.5.
Okay, so to me, there was a point in time when he decided to stop cutting, right? That's the kind of weight miss that I want. I don't want a guy or a girl that misses weight by 1/4 pound. I want someone who just at some point in time during the cut says, you know what, F it. I'm not going to make it. I'm losing 20% of my purse. I'm not going to drain myself. So in this case, I feel a little bit validated by the fact that I'm probably going to have more COSQUE than I would have normally had. And 2, I mean, this is really a fade on Blood Diamond as much as it's a play on COSQUE, right? Do I think he's got a long-term future in the UFC? I don't know. But I mean, I know he's better than Blood Diamond. And I know that, Wells, who everybody is saying, well, I mean, look how hard it was for Wells to take down Blood Diamond. Wells? I mean, we're talking about Wells here, okay? So I like COSQUE a fair amount. I think the over is going to be 25% ownership. I'm going to take the over on that. Tournament play. I also think that you can play him in cash too. The price point is decent. But generally, there's some risk there that if, RBQs is right and maybe the cut affected him a little bit more than I thought, and Blood Diamond survives early, there could be some repercussions as we get into, rounds, late round 2, early round 3. I personally don't think that's going to happen. I like Corsi here. He knows what he needs to do to beat Blood Diamond, and that is not stand and trade in a kickboxing match. He needs to take him down. He needs to ride him out. He needs to get ground control. I see a pretty decent score. The only reason why I may actually like Corsi more for cash versus GPPs, with all respect to Brett Apley, is I don't know that he will get the finish. I mean, if he just grounds him and rides him, unless he actually goes for a sub, I could just see him getting a lot of control time, getting 3 to 4 takedowns, still scoring very well, but just not getting the finish. So I know the inside the distance line is pretty decent, and it says otherwise. But I like this guy in all formats, cash, GPPs. Give me Corsi here. Let me fade Blood Diamond.
I got to do the directing thing here. All right, let's move things around. All right. Igor Porteria, 8,400. He's taking on NIkolai Negomareanu at 7,800. I'm lining this fight. The newcomer. This line. Did this flip?
Yes, there's line value. It flipped.
Ooh. Negomareanu's minus 120 at 7,800. Porteria's plus 100. I don't like that line flip. I like the value. I'm probably going to end up betting Porteria straight if it's at plus money. I think he's the real deal. Watching him, I also don't rate Negomareanu very highly. So that's my read on this fight. Joe, who you got?
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to chase the line value here. I'm not going to.
Of course you are.
I'm not a line value chaser per se. I'm not going to have a ton of it, but I do think, this guy has got the experience. He's got, he's fought some decent fighters in the UFC. Look, it's not a stellar resume, but he's 12-1. He's hard to finish at 7.9K. I'm not going to like 70 points that he got last time in a decision, but if he can, if he gets a couple of takedowns, if he could get in the 10X or so range, I could see him being a good play in cash. On the Santo DeFranco podcast, the one guy, Brandon, took a big position in Negomareanu, said, don't even think about it. Take Negomareanu. He's definitely much more of a UFC fighter than his opponent. So again, I think I like this as a quasi cash play. I'll have a few shares of the other guy, but like line value at 7.8K is kind of hard to pass. And I think for that reason, he's going to get some ownership.
Yeah, I think he will get ownership. RBQs, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, the line value thing takes me back to 2 weeks ago with Dawoon Jung and Dustin Jacoby, right? Doesn't always mean it's going to work out like you think it is. And nope. I have a suspicion that you'll see some very sharp players target Porteria aggressively because of that.
Hello.
You look at the guy's record. I mean, like, I don't even know, does he have like multiple wins against guys with winning records? I can't say for sure. All I know is he's going to come at Negomareanu early. He's going to hit him with a flurry. I think he's hittable in his own right because he kind of goes for it. I think he's explosive. And this is the entire question, right? Is it, can NIkolai survive that first round? I'm not sure. There's the first time for everything, man. I mean, I got burned really bad fading Manel Kopp against Zalgas Zumagulov one time. Like, oh, he's really, really tough. He's going to be really, really hard to get out of there. These are the types of things that, they go well until they don't. I could see Porteria getting this guy out of here. I don't think very highly of Negomareanu in general. So, yes, I'm a fan of line value. In particular, I'm a fan of line value in cash. I was going to recommend Negomareanu as a cash play just because of that. Like, it makes sense at 7.8 to target a guy if you need a last piece, who's become the favorite. If you're betting, you're probably Porteria or pass at this point, right? Like, but in any event, I mean, I'm gonna have a decent amount of both sides. I'll probably be equal weight or slightly underweight to both. If I can try, I have to look at ownership projections. If I can try to get overweight on Porteria at this stage, I might, just because of the unknown. I mean, we don't really quite have a grasp on how good this guy is. He shows like a pretty impressive win on the Contender Series recently, but other than that, I mean, he's fought nothing but cans, and so it's a dicey fight. There's a lot of unknown here. You know, it's really hard to be convicted one way or the other.
By the way, on Tapology, is that Calvin Cater's photo of him, or is that really him?
It looks just like him, doesn't it? It's crazy.
Okay, I'm swearing that's Calvin Cater's photo.
It's him. It's him.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going off my eyes. I think the wrestling's going to be a factor here. I think NIkolai's going to be on his back, but we will see. See if the public takes it or if Vegas gets one with the line value.
I was actually going to add one more thing before you to that effect. I mean, I think if NIkolai can stay on the feet, I think, you know, we can't have much conviction in the cardio of Igor at this point either. Like, we just don't know what we don't know. And I think NIkolai could find himself in the clinch situation against the cage where if he can land a takedown of his own, it's possible that Igor can't even get up from there. I mean, I taped him a little bit and saw him struggle mightily to get up and had to be – I think the ref stepped in and stood up the fight because of lack of activity a couple times against this guy Georgie a couple fights ago. So, I mean, I don't remember the promotion, but I just remember seeing that and thinking, okay, well, if NIkolai can somehow get the fight to the ground on his own, survive the first round, he may put Igor in a dicey situation of his own. So
I think he'll be happy to get through a fight without getting fouled.
You know, Q's that he fought 2 Georgies back to back, right? He's got back to back.
That's crazy.
Let's move on here to a fight. Oh, I see why we're stalling. I get it. Jocelyn Edwards, 8,300, taking on Ji-Yeon Kim at 7,900. Line on this fight, Edwards is minus 125. Kim is plus 105. Not a whole lot of DK goodness here because Edwards is not fighting Priscilla Ketchabeating. That's not the fight. This is Ji-Yeon Kim. Neither is Ji-Yeon Kim. That Kim Priscilla fight was wild. You know, I'm not going to let Joe go first, I guess, in a women's MMA fight. Q's, you're up.
I'm a little bit, you know, when it comes to Kim, I still have a hangover from the fact that I would have chopped the card had she gotten the decision that I think she did earn against Ketchabeating. I really thought she won that fight. And she was 9% owned, and she would have had a score over 90 points, and that would have been optimal. And yet here we are. And when it comes to Kim, she's all of a sudden carrying a 3-fight losing streak and facing, you know, most likely a pink slip if she loses in this spot. But I favor her here. I kind of don't think much of Jocelyn Edwards coming off a win against the punching bag and Ramona. Ramona, who actually did hurt her pretty well with a body shot at some point in that fight. Edwards goes on to miss weight today. Again, you know, we can argue whether or not that actually matters, but I think she's coming down to her natural weight at 135, and she goes on to miss weight. Fight is still relatively short notice, right? You know, and from it, I'm probably more excited to see how this turns out just as a fight fan than I am on DraftKings. But that's not going to move the needle. I mean, no one's really going to play this fight, right? Like, what's the combined ownership of this fight? 12 to 15% a fighter. In my mind, this is, you know, and I haven't really gotten into kind of how I play these slates or what my process is, but these are often fights that I just blindly go overweight on, especially with it being women's MMA. I know that neither fighter is looking to strike, or to wrestle actively. Doesn't mean we can't see a takedown or some control or two. Doesn't mean we're going to be flush with underdogs that have huge scores either, and we may need a bridging score out of that salary range to get us to some of the higher scores at the high 8K and 9K range. So I can't rule it out. You know, my gut says to favor Kim here in this spot because she's desperate. She needs a win. I actually think highly of her relative to what the public does. I shouldn't say I think highly of her. I think she's better than her record is indicating at this point. And I feel like, you know, I mean, the Molly McCann fight, she had some good moments in that fight. She got taken down a couple times. That's what blew it. I think she won the Cachoeira fight. She had a good round one against Alexa Grosso. Edwards has a loss to Jessie Jess Rose Clark 2 fights ago, and she beat up Pasquale. Woohoo! So in my mind, I think Kim should be the favorite in this fight. I'm not like overly convicted in it, but I'll be rooting for her certainly. And I'm going to try to get overweight on both these girls and see where it lands me.
Joe, how about you?
Yeah. I want the same guy at Fight Metrics who scored the last 2 fights for Kim to score this fight. Last fight, I believe it was 340 strikes, significant or otherwise. And
that's about right, though. Did you watch the fight? That wasn't a fight metric.
That's my point. My point is that she was credited with that, and she would have had a pretty decent score if she won that fight. Edwards as well in her last fight, 164 significant strikes and 175 strikes, right, for 99 points. So I would like this fight a lot more if there wasn't, if I didn't have a few 7-5 or lower fighters. There's a couple guys at 7-5 or below that I like a fair amount that would preclude me from being overly invested in this fight. However, I don't disagree with the take of RBQs. I would look towards Kim here. I think she's a slightly better striker. She's fighting for a pink slip. You got like RB said, she's got her back up against the wall. And I never thought much of Jocelyn Edwards. So I'll take Kim here, but I don't think I'm going to have the same level of ownership. And maybe it'll come back to cost me. I don't think I'm going to have the same level of ownership in this fight as he is. I'll probably be at or below market, so I could spread some of that to some of these 7.5K and lower fighters.
Oh, I almost started talking before I switched over. Damn it, odds. It's all your fault, Chris. Hope you're doing well. Next fight up, we're going to talk about, I'm not even 100% of this guy's name, but I'm saying it this way because that's the way I say it every time in my head. Michael Morales, he's 9,500, taking on Adam Fuckett, which is what you got to be thinking if you're going to play this guy at 6,700. Line of this fight is currently Morales at -600, Fuckett plus 450. I'm intentionally walking the line there. Fight does not go to decision, by the way, overall -280, so they're expensive, but the odds lead you to believe it's probably going to be worth it. Joe, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, who do I got? I mean, I got Morales here, of course. Although, I've been off work this week. That's the day job. So I've had a lot more time than I would normally have, coming up on a slate. And this guy is not the worst that I've ever seen. Like, I mean, I think he's he's 33 years old and he's making his UFC debut. I also, and again, I might be a little unduly biased here, but I like the way that his gym is called Art of War MMA.
Yeah, you stole my thunder, man. I was going to hit you with that.
Yeah, that's something that I kind of like. He lost to Nick Maximov in a submission underground. Had a couple of canceled bouts, and then he won his last fight by punches in LFA. LFA is a reasonably good promotion. Again, I don't think he's the worst. And he was, by the way, was a +7-2 underdog, and it was a co-main event, and he won in the first round. So he's not the worst fighter in the world. That was a little bit less than 5 months ago, call it. So I don't think he's an absolute can. But with that said, I think Morales, 23 years old, he is the guy that is being pushed here. Fugitt is taking the fight on short notice. Say what you will about, Ecuadorian wrestling championships. The guy is 13-0. Again, would I be surprised if he were to lose? No. But again, I think this is the kind of guy that for whatever reason the UFC likes to build up. In his last fight against Trevin Giles, it was an even fight. And it was 25th best knockout of 2022. So I think all the things are lining up for him to win this fight. Would I bet straight up at -600? No. But I think this is a solid cash play. If you could make it work, I mean, obviously you're going to have to like something in the lower tier to get this guy into your lineup. I'm not sure what his ownership is going to be. I don't think he's going to be owned as high as Nunes. But I think maybe in the 9K range fighters, he might be the second highest fighter owned in the 9K range. But I'm in on Morales here.
All right, RBQs, rather than saying who you got, how much you got?
I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I agree with Joe on his take that this guy's not the worst. But as I think about like I mentioned before, I think of these lineups as investments, and I just don't really want to invest in this guy at all because I do want to invest in Pena. I want to invest in Garcia. I want to invest in Alves. I want to invest in Blood Diamond, Kai Kara France to a lesser extent. So I just don't know that I want to be.
Sorry, what?
I don't know that I want to be opening up my lineups after the slate, looking at lineups where I ran completely pure and have Fugit in there blowing it up. I just, Morales has the full camp. He's improving and seems to be doing so fast. Looks hungry. Looked great against Giles, who obviously it's no secret he has at least a couple solid wins on his resume. He's explosive. He's the pride of Ecuador alongside Chito, and I like him to knock this guy out in the first or second round, point blank. I think this guy, whereas he's not the worst, this is short notice. I think he can seem slow at times. I think he's hittable. I don't think he's particularly that durable, and that's the outcome I want to bet on here. I'm not going to be overweight to him. Typically at the high end, I like to, when it comes to these, I think it'll be 35, somewhere like maybe high 30s owned to approaching 40% even potentially. Because of the price range, because of the salary, I may look to come in just a couple points under that and use that ownership on some other fighters in the similar range who have good win equity, but may not be targeted as often, just to take my chances there. So yeah, no Fugit for me. And in terms of his ownership, I can't see him coming in much higher than 5%. I could be wrong, but.
Yeah, probably sounds about right. The dog you listed in there, I don't know about the last one to talk about it. Some foreshadowing based on what I talked about earlier. I need someone to talk me off of Kai Kara France the more I watch.
Well, that'll be easy enough. But let me ask you one question.
It's getting scary.
Sean, before we move on, do you know what Ecuador is the leading producer of?
I'm not going to say anything that's going to get me in trouble with.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
No, I wasn't. No.
Ecuador is the leading producer of quinoa, a superfood. So, just so you know.
I mean, you guys, that was a lot of talking on that fight. You're like, he's not that bad. I mean, well, Vegemite isn't poison, so therefore, it's a delicious food.
Vegemite is disgusting.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on here. We're going to talk about Drakkar Klose at 9,100, Rafa Garcia at 7,100. The line on this fight, Klose minus 215, Garcia plus 185. This is a situation for me. My quick breakdown on the fight is that regardless of who you're picking to win, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not even going to give you my pick to win, but regardless of who you're picking to win, who's more likely to end up in the optimal lineup? Is it Drakkar Klose? No. I mean, I see such a hard time for Klose to get there that I don't care what you think of this fight. You should probably have more Garcia. You need some dogs, take a couple stabs, and move on about your day. And if Drakkar Klose burns my nipples off, I'll just move on to the next slate. Let's go with who's up for this one. You know what, Q's, let's start with you while Joe eats his Vegemite.
Yeah. Did Klose go into a phone booth for 2 years after the Stevens shove and all of a sudden become a finisher? I'm willing to bet against that just because of the opponent that he just faced. I mean, Brandon Jenkins got like ragdolled by Zhu Rong for a while on the fight prior. So, this is like one of my least favorite fights on the card, actually, because even though, I'm considering an outright fade of Klose just because like he's not a finisher and he's facing a guy who, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he's ever been finished.
Never.
So, but I also don't project. I don't project Rafa Garcia to win this fight either. So it's like, yeah, Garcia projects to be more. If he wins, what's the path? He gets takedowns, but he's a relentless wrestler. He's going to look to get Klose down on the mat. I don't know that he does so at like a particularly high clip. I think he could do it 1 to 2 times. I can't really see it.
You know what he should do? How he gets the win here? He should just go up to him and shove him. Just to see what happens. Just go shove him.
Yeah, can't rule it out at this point, right? UFC, but look, here's how I think Klose loses the fight. I think he goes out like he did against Beneil Dariush, and like goes for it and finds a way to gas out or slow down on some level. But Garcia slows down in his own right as the fight goes on. I was going to say, maybe Garcia could be like a fringe. If you felt really strongly that Moreno was going to win against Kai Kara France, then maybe in that price range, if you needed a last piece, you could consider Garcia, who's never been finished. Maybe he gets a couple takedowns and he has a high floor. But I'm not going to – I mean, I'm considering an outright faded close first and foremost. And with Garcia, I certainly don't want to come in overweight on him because I don't expect to win. It's not going to be X'd out of my player pool. But at the same time, I'm just going to I'm not going to make a high investment in him here at this point because I just don't think he's going to win the fight.
Joe?
Well, I just fell back. I don't know if I could finish this analysis. Let's see. So, okay. Really interesting. Look, I'm not gonna have a lot of close here. I'm gonna actually pick Garcia to win. One of the interesting things here about close, and you've got to take into account that there's some bad blood. And I love listening to and watching the Santo DeFranco podcast because he's MMA Lab split, fight ready. So, these guys know they know close really well. And the one thing that they did say, sour grapes aside, is that one of the things that they always thought about close is that he had to prove how much better he was than you in fights. So he would look to actually go out there and kill you. And he was hard to get a handle on. And I think if he tries to take that approach with Garcia, he could get hurt. Now, I'm not predicting a Garcia early finish. I could see him maybe locking him up in a sub, but I don't really think that there's that wide a discrepancy in skills between the two of them. I don't know what Garcia's cardio is going to look like here. I'm going to assume Close had a good training camp. Close is the significant other of Courtney Casey, so maybe that's taken some time away from his training. I don't love Close at his price.
Wait, when did that start? When is that a new thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They've been together for a little while now.
Yeah.
Okay. Has he had a fight since then?
Yeah. Yeah.
I see. I didn't actually know
maybe,
that.
Maybe yes, maybe no. I'm not sure.
Okay. We need to go 100%. If I'm gonna go look this up while you guys are talking, but 1,000%, if this is his first fight with Courtney Casey being a significant other, I'm going to bet Garcia by split decision.
There you go.
Split has to be because she's the split decision queen. If she gave him the split decision bug, I'm going to go bet it.
Split decision by association. I get it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm going to pick Garcia here. I mean, again, I like in varying degrees 3 fighters, maybe let's say 4 fighters, including the main event. I like 4 fighters a little bit 7-5 and under. So I'm going to be playing them in varying percentages, right, based on how my lineup constructions come together. And Garcia is going to be one of those 4 fighters.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull this up. I got a little sidetracked here.
Just the last, this guy lost to Chris Grutzemacher. I can't get it out of my head, man. I just can't pick him to win.
Grutzemacher has had some good fight. Like I've seen Grutzemacher fight live, and when he shows up, he's not a bad fighter. But okay, yeah, I get it. That's a bad loss.
All right, Dontel Mays, 8,500, taking on the most strangely shaped individual to ever fight in the UFC, Hamdi Abdel Wahab. Yeah, that dude looks like a pear. Like I don't want to body shame anybody because they gotta whip my ass, but his shape is weird, man. Mays minus 195, Hamdi plus 165. This line did some really interesting things in that it opened up a pick'em pretty much, and then it jumped to minus 170, and then it got all the way back to like minus 130 again, and now we're up at minus 195. All that on the Mays side. So it's strange how it's dancing around. I agree with where it landed. I'm amazed at 8,500 now for minus 200. That's the biggest odds value on the card, even with the line flip in the mid-range ish fight. So Mays is going to be chalk. How are we handling the chalk? Q's, you're up.
If you think this guy looks like a pear, obviously you did. You see his opponents. I mean, I had like legitimate laugh out loud moments taping this guy, which
well, nobody looks good, but you've seen him too.
He fought this guy, Matt Strickland, who looked like a pear. He actually designed like a pear, and he fought him twice, and he beat the crap out of the guy inside of 15 seconds.
Oh, maybe I flipped. I meant beat. Oh God, I flipped my intro. That's the guy I'm thinking of.
Okay, yeah, Until I tuned into Brett Apley and the technical Tim over at Daily Fan MMA yesterday, I was ready for the full fade on Hamdi. And then, maybe they got in my head a little bit thinking, well, this is Don'Tale Mayes here. Like, are we sure this guy's not going to get taken down? Or yes, he's showing improvements. Yes, he dominated Josh Parisian, for crying out loud, for whatever that's worth. I mean, I don't know. My first instinct was just to fade this guy outright and say, you do not belong. And I don't know if you guys had heard Cody Saptic earlier in the week reference that he actually recruited this guy for promotion in Niagara Falls, and
he couldn't get across the wall. He couldn't get across.
Yeah, for like $1,000, and now like a month later, here he's in the UFC, fighting Don'Tale Mayes, who I actually think maybe I'm higher on Mayes than the public. I don't know. I don't. He looks like he's improving a little bit. He's got a couple wins in a row here. He's got an 8-inch reach advantage that hopefully he can.
Some people hate him. Kevin at DFS Army refers to him as milk bag. You will never call you'll never hear him call him Don'Tale Mayes. It'll be milk bag.
Kevin must be on vacation because he didn't do the DFS Army pod this week.
Yes, he is. He's overseas.
Yeah,
on vacation.
Okay.
I gotta say, I'm still undecided. Like typically when I'm on the fence about a fighter heading up to lock, sometimes I'll just get extra courageous and just whack him right at tomorrow it would be 5:57 p.m. But in this particular case, I mean, I think there's at least some chance he goes out, lands a couple takedowns, but does he have any cardio beyond that? We have no idea. Does he have any striking beyond that? We have no idea. And so my suspicion here, and guys correct me if I'm wrong, I think Mayes is going to be like uber chalk at this point in this price range. Just if you just say that out loud, feels like a thing you should be underweight on. So I probably am going to play some of this Hamdi guy. I'm not sure how much, but one thing that I do that I think, that I would want to note on this show is if I do end up playing certain fighters who I feel maybe don't belong or I don't feel great about, sometimes I'll set groups and just limit how often they appear together. And I was toying with making a You Don't Belong Here group between Poteria, Blood Diamond, and Hamdi, and just saying max 2, just so I don't open up my lineups and see 3 people I wasn't terribly high on to begin with.
Smart.
So in any way, what my gun to my head, I think Mayes just shows him there's levels to this and gets around there at some point, maybe later than he should to justify the ownership. In which case, I'll probably come in slightly underweight on Mayes.
So Joe, who you got?
So first of all, let me address the call out by Brett Apley. I will apologize for casting aspersions on the state of the Egyptian wrestling program. However, let's throw a little water on this fire here. I'm not going to play any less Mayes, but what I did get out of the take by Technical Tim is I will play a few shares of Hamdi, but let me tell you about Hamdi. Okay. Aside from the anecdote that was shared by RBQs on how he couldn't go into Canada because he didn't have the right kind of visa for $1,000. It says he's fighting out of New York. Now, I heard he's training somewhere in upstate New York, which is not a bastion for MMA gyms. If you look at his Tapology page, he's affiliated with a gym in New Jersey, in Oakhurst. Now, New Jersey does have some, believe it or not, some MMA culture there. There are 3 people in his gym that have actually had fights, none of them since 2019, and none of them at heavyweight. So I have to wonder, aside from casting aspersions on his wrestling credibility, who has he actually been training with? Where has he been at? Where has he been getting his reps in?
You better bring this same energy when you break down Amanda Nunes at her camp later.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what I will. I'll address that. So that's what I want to know here. I mean, yes, I was a little discouraged initially by listening to the by the take, by Tim and Brett, and but when I thought about it, I'm like, okay, so maybe he's not a suck ass wrestler, and maybe Egyptian wrestling is better than Division III, League 2, but who has he been training with? Where has he been getting reps? This guy could not get to Canada for $1,000 fight. what kind of money is he putting into his training? Like, you know, there's just so many questions here. Making his MMA debut on a pay-per-view card, you know, in Dallas, and who knows if this guy has been out of the Northeast. So I just think there's so much narrative around this fight that I'm not going to play any less Mays than I would have played. But what it did do is convince me to play a couple of percent of Hamdi just in case.
All right, moving on. Next fight up is Drew Dober, 9,000, taking on Rafael Alves at 7,200. Dober minus 170, Alves plus 145. Look, I'm a Drew Dober fan. I've made a lot of money on the Drew Dober train. A lot, quite frankly. I wasn't dumb enough to play him against Makhachev, but other than that, I've been riding him, and my losses were the Brad Riddell fight and the Dariush fight. And I think I bet on him most of his UFC fights, and he's just really underrated. He's a really, really solid kickboxer whose takedown defense is improving. Improving is the issue here. What is Rafael Alves going to do? If Alves tries to strike with him, he's going to end up unconscious. And yes, I know he got a knockdown against Ismagulov. Drew Dober will put him down and keep him down. But Alves has a pretty clear path to victory in the grappling. Do I think he's going to do it? I'm not picking him to win, but it's a pretty clear path if he can get the takedown. Joe, does he get the takedown, and how much Alves is he playing?
Alves is another one of the fighters that I like 7.5K or under. Look, that win against Diakese is aging so well, as good as Diakese has looked. You know, that he got him down, he choked him out. Again, you know, Dober is Dober, right? He comes back from adversity. Doesn't always have the best fight IQ. Like, I think he could have handled that fight with Benny a bit differently. But I think this is going to be a gunfight. I'll have a few shares of Dober. He's not like, again, there's two fighters that I like a lot over 9K. Dober's not one of them. But I got to think that Alves is live here, not only because, you know, Brett Apley has got him as his salary saver, you know, of the slate. I liked him actually before I even heard that. That helped affirm it. MMA Masters, pretty good affiliation there. You know, some good coaching. I could, you know, trains, what is that? I believe that's is that out of Chicago? You know, trains with some pretty good fighters. I'm going to give him a shot here. Look, I love Dober too. I mean, I love what he did coming back from that Terrence McKinney beatdown. I could see this being a really exciting fight. But you got to have shares. What is he? 7.2, 7.1? You got to have shares at that price, just because I think there is a chance. 7.2K. 7.2K. He's been averaging 58 UFC points over the course of two fights. He scored 24 against Ismagulov in a loss, put up 92 in a win against Diakese. Again, that win, you know, kind of stands the test of time. It looks like a really good win now. So anyway, I'll take shares of Alves. I'll go ahead and pick him for the upset just because I need to make a pick. But I do think you should have exposure to this fight.
Q's.
Yeah, I think this fight's going to a finish. You know, I'm going back and forth on the outcome here because in my mind, I feel like if the fight starts round 2, I got to favor Dober. And, you know, like, I think it sets up very similarly to the way the McKinney fight sets up, where I think Alves, you guys watch him fight, and he comes forward with these like 3-4 punch combinations or like a flying knee and goes immediately to try to lock up a guillotine or does the club and sub thing. Like, that seems like his home. And I could see that playing out in this scenario here. You know, I don't know that I see Dober getting like knocked out on the feet by this guy. I know he's been hurt a couple of. I know Liddell beat him up pretty bad. I know McKinney had him hurt early. I don't think he's been knocked out in quite some time, maybe like 10 years or something like that, right? So I think he can be hurt. I think he can be submitted. But if it gets outside of round 1, I think he has shown that resolve to take over the fight and work from there and maybe slow Alves down and, from a DraftKings perspective, I think Alves might be setting up to be like a pretty popular underdog outside of Pena, and he might end up rivaling Kai Kara France. Like I get the feeling Kai Kara France is the lowest owned of the championship fighters, and you can see Alves, who is projected by betting odds to lose this fight, getting quite a bit of ownership. What I would want to do with that, and it may kill me. Certainly, I think he could win the fight. Certainly, I'm scared of it. But I might look to get overweight on Drew Dober in that price range and think maybe that he has a shot at a finish as a tough fighter who's been around and been in some really tough fights. So, if you look at that price range, obviously Close is not going to come in with much ownership. But, Moreno will, Morales will, Nunez will. Who else is in that price range? You got Ankalaev, not sure. But I tend to think Dober won't see a ton of ownership here. What I typically like to do is spread out my ownership amongst the fighters in that 9K range who project to win the fight and just let it guide me wherever it does and live and die with it. And so
I like that. And you pick your dogs. I change strategy slate by slate because I tend to think every slate is different. But there are fights where I don't want to make a choice at 9K. Usually, hopefully, I've got a good read on the dogs in that card. But that's typically how that's one of the many strategies that can work.
And I should clarify, I'm coming at this from like a mass multi-entry perspective.
Yes.
Right. I think in single entries, I don't know if you're actively targeting Dober. I think around his price range, there's a lot of other places you're landing first. So, you're trying to win a large field tournament. This is the kind of way I like to think.
Let's move on to Matthew Semelsberger, 8,600, take on Alex Morono at 7,600. Line of this fight, Semelsberger is -155, Morono +135. I'm on Semelsberger. I'm having a hard time getting a lot of Morono shares in because I like other people in this mid-range, and I keep thinking to myself, man, that could be a mistake, but where do I want to remove the ownership from? That's kind of the boat I'm in with this fight right now. I am on Semelsberger. Q's, who do you have?
I hate this fight. Outright hate this fight because I think it's projected to go to the decision, but in my mind, I feel like, having watched both of these guys fight, why do I feel like a finish is coming?
I feel the same way. I have toyed with the betting does not go to decision.
Yeah, and I think, we've seen Semelsberger, beat up on Jason Witt and Martin Sano, and so maybe that's just some bias in our head guiding us that way. I've also seen Morono clipped and hurt, and I've seen him hurt other fighters too. I think the most important thing I'd want to communicate about this fight is that the fight's in Texas. Morono's a Texas guy. We know how Texas judges roll. And, I project Semelsberger to be the fighter to end it inside the distance at a higher clip. And I think Morono is probably the fighter I project to win by decision at a higher clip. And so if it goes to the cards, I got to favor Morono, and that's why I got to play a little bit of him here. And I'll have Semelsberger too. I get the feeling he might be going overlooked just specifically because he's in that tricky range between Koshi and Don'Tale Mayes. Him and Pantoja are the type of fighters that I like to go overweight on just simply because I think they profile decently and they could break the slate and no one will be shocked. So, I'll probably be overweight on both of these fighters despite hating it and not having a good read from where, it lands in terms of the result. I think if you're betting the fight, I think it's like a clear dog or pass situation. But yeah, I'm going to try to work with my feeling that it ends inside the distance and get overweight on both of these guys.
Joe.
No, I think you made a really good point about, how you're attacking the slate. I really do see this as a mass enter slate. I think there's a lot of different ways that you could go, in the, 8K to 9K range that could put up some seriously high scores. And the way to cover yourself there is to assign percentages and to max enter. And look, I'm not encouraging people to bet more than they're comfortable with, but like if there was ever a card to max enter, and look, it could be max entering the dollar, right? If there was ever a card to max enter, it would be this one, because I think there are some guys who have put up seriously high scores, in the 8 and 9K price points. I think this is a fight. I mean, again, you kind of touched on the narrative with Moreno kind of being Morono being home here. And, you know, if this guy had any athleticism, he would probably be a top 10 fighter. I don't think I see Semelsberger finishing him. I really don't. Morono is so tough. I do see this fight going to decision. And because of that, you know, I would probably lean more towards Morono here, just because I don't think Semelsberger is going to finish him. And on those rare occasions when we do see Moreno wrestle, you know, he's got a fight where he's got 3 takedowns. You know, so if he does that here, I think there could be some interesting grappling exchanges. Not that I expect there to be, but at 7.6K, I'm probably going to be higher weighted to Morono. But RBQ's made a great point at 8.6K, based on where he is between Corsi and Dontel Mays. If you really want to get some leverage, some ownership leverage, you know, play a lot of Semelsberger.
Yeah, and this, just one more thing just piggybacking off of that, like this is a classic case of like this, how do you get different without having to play fighters you don't expect to win? I think it's just an easy way to do it.
Yep.
All right, next fight up, let's move on to Magomed Ankalaev, 9,400, taking on Anthony Smith at 6,800. Ankalaev is currently, I moved my odds. Son of a bitch, my odds are gone.
Minus 600 or something.
Something like that, but I want to. Minus 560 right now.
Yeah.
So I have minus 560. Come back, and Anthony Smith is plus 430. I'm gonna start doing. I should start doing 10-second breakdown of fights. Ankalaev wins. I don't know how he ends up on the optimal. And like Smith has seemed too tough to me in the past. And Ankalaev is more than happy to stand a strike with you if he's beating you on the feet. He's not. I know the last name. Looks like he's gonna get a ton of takedowns. He'll just beat you up on the feet. He's fine with that. Anthony Smith has shown he could take a beating. Maybe that catches up with him. So that's my prediction for this fight. Joe, you're up first.
Yeah, I think you can get some leverage here too by playing Ankalaev.
Yep.
Because of Anthony Smith's perceived toughness. Plus Ankalaev has not been a great DraftKings scorer. I mean, look at his 2 Kudalaba fights. And I think those were the 2 best scores that he had on DraftKings. And if this goes to decision, and Anthony Smith plays a guard game and, doesn't get finished and, the fight goes 3 rounds, I certainly see Ankalaev as being a long shot to make optimal. Now, if he comes out and he has an Ian Kudalaba type of performance and somehow catches Anthony Smith and finishes him, then you're going to be a guy that is likely going to be lower owned than Nunes, is going to be lower owned than Morales, and you could get some leverage to the field in mass entry. So, look, I'm not going to pick Anthony Smith to get the win. If you're asking for a winner, I'll go with Ankalaev. It's just on the surface, I don't see myself getting to him that much in DraftKings because of my belief that this fight will go to decision.
RBQs.
I don't see myself getting to him because there's just like a bevy of fighters right above him that I do want to play.
Yeah.
I could see Ankalaev making this weird. He's like a bang your head against the wall fighter if you have him on DraftKings because he can wrestle. He just doesn't choose to do so like often. And I feel like this is a very clear path for him to make this fight dominating if he wanted to do it. For some reason, he plays in this world where he just likes to see how it goes. And he stood in front of Santos and got knocked down, didn't he? In the main event in February. I think he's going to win the fight. And you use the term leverage, Joe. This is the type of play, if you consider his win equity, that I usually just attack blindly and over time hope that it helps me out. And in comparison to someone like Drakkar Klose, who's not a finisher and fighting a guy never been finished, in my mind here, the win equity is too high to ignore. And in scenarios where Nunes loses and Morales has some kind of quick win that doesn't score that well, 102, 103 or something, I could see it happening. Maybe he gets a knockdown versus Smith. Maybe he does land some takedowns and get some control. We just don't know. But we know that on paper he's projected to win this fight pretty often, and that's what I'm going to invest in. So
I mean, you gotta look, just to kind of add on to that. Look at his last 3 performances, right? 9.6K, 80 points in a 5-round fight. 9.1K, 77 points in a 3-round fight. 9.3K, 82 points in a 3-round fight.
It's contrarian at this point.
Yeah, I mean, so and then you've got those 2 big performances against, Kudalaba, and you got a 1st-round finish against Prachnio. So he's had 300-point performances, and 2 of them against the Kudalaba. So that's my issue here. I mean, you could argue whether Smith is worse or better than any of those guys that he beat, but he just doesn't go for the kill, right? He's a technical fighter, and at 9.4K, you need a finish. I mean, he's not going to win it for you by volume. You need a finish.
So maybe the difference in format is where you consider this guy. If you don't need to be perfect in a single entry or a 3 max, you just need something to fling up there. You cross this guy off, because you want to land on Nunez and you want to land on Morales. So you just say whatever. But in a mass multi-entry contest, to me, this is, with his win equity, this is just a site that over time that I tend to attack, hoping that it pays off. And I don't want to be too contradictory to myself with close sitting right there, but I laid out the reasons why I have minimal interest in him. And if I want to pick one between the 2, I'd rather go with the guy minus 540 to win.
Yeah, let me see if we have preliminary ownership yet. I'll take a look real quick. Okay, so we have preliminary ownership up. So it looks like Ankalaev ownership is looking like 28%. I see that as pretty high to me. I'm probably going to be under.
Do you take the under on that coming in?
Well, for me, I would take that. I don't know where it's actually going to wind up, but I think I'll be under 28%.
Got it. Okay. I'll probably have field at that rate if it's 28. I mean, I'm looking tomorrow to flatten out as much as I can amongst those fighters in that price range.
I'll be pretty close.
And just to put things in perspective, right? Above him is Morales, who is projected at 35%, and below him is Nunez, who's projected at 45%.
Yeah.
So that's the spread in the middle.
Yeah. All right. This, not that anybody who plays DFS MMA counts their money before the end of the night. Not that, because we all know things change wildly up and down, all that good stuff. But this card particularly, do not do that, because I think this card sets up really interesting. Of the last 4 fights, Pantoja Perez, Pavlovich, Lewis, Moreno, Kai Kara France, Nunez, Pena. I could very easily see all 4 dogs winning. Wouldn't stun me even a little bit if all 4 of these dogs win. I think they're all live dogs. I'm going to make a case for picking a few of them in a minute. And then it gets real interesting real quick. The dogs at the end of this card. I haven't seen it backloaded this much in a while. So first one up is Pantoja and Perez. Perez unfortunately becomes, even though he's the one I am picking to win straight out, if the other dogs on this card come through, he's not going to be one of the high-scoring dogs. He wins this fight by staying on his feet, using his quickness, staying on the outside, probably getting a 60, 70-point decision, close fight. I think that's how Perez wins, unless he puts down Pantoja. I just don't like to bet on finishes at flyweight. I just don't. And being 3 rounds to work versus a 5-round fight that we're going to talk about in a little bit, Perez is there as kind of salary saver who I think is, live for a win. I'm going to take him to win a close fight. Pantoja is the kind of guy, he can beat anybody at every given night, but I've seen him no-show plenty of times. And I'm not, going all the way back to to his time on Tough and Dustin, him no-showing, not a surprise to me at all. And there's other mid-range fighters I like a little more. So give me Perez to win a close decision. And that the price tag it's a funky one, because it's one of those, a dog I picked to win, but I'm not going to be overexposed to Alex Perez. I'm probably going to end up, let me pull out my stuff here. I'll give one away here since I'm making the case for Perez. I'm probably going to end up in that 20 25-ish% range, somewhere in there. It's one of the ones I'm bumping up a little bit. I think, Joe, you're first for this fight.
So I disagree slightly, not with your take on Perez. If you look at Perez's, history, right? He's averaged 87 DraftKings points, and that includes 2 losses of 4 and 11 points, right? So when he wins, he puts up a pretty significant number, right? So,
well, I'm gonna fight you for a second though, because I'm gonna look, because I did that too. So you had Juicy Formiga was 122. He had 2 knockdowns in that fight. It's getting multiple knockdowns is a little bit fluky. And then Jordan Espinosa is a first-round sub. If he subs Pantoja in the first round, I will be stunned with. Just like he's got some perform. And then the other huge one was Torres, where he got I think. Why was that score so high?
Probably put a lot of volume on Torres.
No. Okay.
He put a lot of volume on
Torres. He had 84 significant strikes in the first round. Yeah. In a first round finish. Holy shit. Yeah. They all seem like outlier performances, which are always possible, but
I mean,
I don't know.
It could be the way he fights, right? I mean, I guess my other point is he seemingly doesn't have much of a floor. If you look at his stat line, right? Like he's all ceiling, right? Which is why I would look at him in GPPs. I like Perez. I mean, I'm going to have I think ownership on Perez is looking at like 16%. I'll probably be a scotch higher than 16% on Perez. But again, there are a number of guys I like in that 7.5 or lower, and I need to kind of spread ownership around. So I do kind of like Perez. Now, there's a lot of narrative, as you know, around Perez. I did not watch weigh-ins. I asked in Discord how he looked in weigh-ins, and all I got a GIF from John Stargarian with like a French chef making a kissing motion, which I assume means perfect, that he looked really good at weigh-ins. Perez has historically had issues making weight. So the fact that he actually made weight and looked good actually makes me like him a lot more. He's had fights that have been canceled and postponed. He hasn't fought since 2020. And his last fight was a really bad and quick sub by Figueiredo. It was like really a bad fight IQ moment. So look, I think this is it for Perez. I'm not saying he's going to get cut, but I think he really needs to come out and have a strong performance here against Pantoja, who I actually believe Perez is a better fighter than Pantoja. People are looking at the narrative. They're looking at, that he struggled with weight. They're looking at, his last, fight against Figueiredo. He first came on my radar against Torres and how good he did against Torres. And then I kind of followed him all along, and I'm like, wow, this guy can fight. So I like Perez here. I'm going to pick Perez to get the upset. I will have shares of Pantoja. He is a tough guy. He's at 8.7K. He's likely going to be under-owned. So I definitely want to have shares of Pantoja. But at 16%, if that is what it's looking like, I see myself going over 16% on Perez.
RBQ, so you got
that's a projection on Perez. You said is 16.
Yeah,
I'll be over on that too if that's the case. It makes sense that it would be the case, right? If you think about the price range, there's main event fighters and stuff. There's Alves, but right below him right above him is Morono. So.
Yeah, and you've got Pena and Kai Kara France sucking up a lot of
ownership.
A lot of ownership at under, at 7K or 7.5K or less.
I'd like to be over on the fight. I'd really like to be over on Pantoja. I think he's going to find that neck, man. This guy leaves his neck out. Perez, he's left his neck out.
I know. Like scares me to death.
So I just 2-year layoff. He did look good on the scales, in my opinion. I think he comes back out here. I think he lands. He does have a wrestling. I think he's a better wrestler. He'll land takedowns. But I think if he's messing around on the mat down there for too long, I think he's going to wind up getting submitted. And if he doesn't, I don't know, in today's scoring format on DraftKings, you guys were looking at the logs. The Mark De La Rosa fight shows 2 takedowns and 8 minutes of control for a 96-point DraftKings score. I think that's in the realm of possibility too. Maybe not.
Take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
7.5K.
you'd be looking at, you know, most likely.
I think we both agree though, RBQs, right? This is pure GPP.
I think so for sure.
Yeah, there's no floor here.
Yeah, no cash, no.
Yeah, no floor at 7.5K. At 7.6.
No, you guys are in. All right, let's move on to. Gotta change this back. Move on to the next fight. Next fight up, we're talking about Sergey Pavlovich, 8,200, taking on Derek Lewis at 8,000. Line on this fight, I just strongest take on this one. Pavlovich minus 155, Lewis plus 135. I'm gonna explain this one fully because, at least my take, because it's gonna sound contradictory unless I go all the way through it. I think Derek Lewis wins this fight in the second round. That's my pick. I think Pavlovich is the better DraftKings play because if he wins, I think he'll finish Lewis in the first round or with more volume. I also think that I'm more likely to be under. I'm going to be under on Derek Lewis because I think he's going to be more popular. Pay-per-view card people clicking on the guy they know, Black Beast, his balls is hot, all that stuff. I just think there's more upside with Pavlovich. I'd rather be over. So while I'm picking, it's strange in that I'm picking Lewis to win the fight. Pavlovich is, if not my highest, my second highest ownership fighter. And it's bananas to think that. I'm like, I don't know, I'm picking this guy to win. But when he wins, I don't know how he doesn't end up on the optimal. Unless he does to Derek Lewis, unless they stay away from each other for an entire first round. But I don't think Sergey has that in him. I don't think. So it's weird. If anybody's telling you to go all in this fight, and you know what, I know with other people's stuff, not nearly as much as I used to. So if I'm incriminating anybody, Brad or the guys at Osimo or Mad Lab, whoever it is who's really smart, if they're telling you to go all in on this fight, I'd probably unsubscribe from them because have you not seen Lewis and Ngannou or any Lewis fight where they could stand and look at each other for 5 rounds?
Yeah.
And then 80 points is just not enough in the second. It's just not. Yeah, we're probably going to get a finish and does not go to decision as high, but there's so many scenarios plus ownership where this is not an all-in fight. It's not. So that's my breakdown. Q's, who you got?
You had some awesome points there. I was going to bring up that hesitation stare down, but I do want to mention that when I think about going all in on fights, I do typically think about format. If I was building a bunch of single entry or 3 max lineups, I might just go all in on this fight.
Yeah, no, I'm talking for 150 GPP.
You're 150, yeah. At the same time, though, it's tough to make a stance here because I think both these guys are going to come in probably like over 30%, or somewhere around there. I project their ownership in my mind. I think they're going to come in similarly because I think the public is getting smarter, and I think the Black Beast has had pockets where he hasn't looked very good as much for as many pockets that there have been where he's looked good. I don't think he gave the best account of himself in that Tuivasa fight, getting dropped by that elbow there. He looked like he was about to die. And, I thought to myself, he might be on his way out. The point I want to make about this fight is that I have to project someone's getting knocked out. I have cardio concerns about Pavlovich. He's so big. I feel like if he doesn't get Lewis out, not like I'm praising Lewis's cardio, but yeah.
If this goes to a third round, it could be one of those ugly heavyweight third rounds.
I could consider maybe Pavlovich gasses here. I think that's in the realm.
Maybe.
I mean, we just haven't seen it, so we don't know. He's going to carry like a 5-inch reach advantage, something in that range.
Big reach advantage.
If he wants to stand directly in front of Derek Lewis and just bang with him, he's risking it, man. It's just not a good idea. I think he even comes from a wrestling background that he seldom uses. So, I have to favor the guy on his way up. Not like he's really fought anybody except Overeem, I feel like, that I have any respect for, and that was a couple of years ago. But, yeah, I mean, look, the bottom line is you have to imagine someone's getting knocked out in this fight. You have to play it at a high clip. I don't think you're coming in massively under or you're just guessing. And you could be costing yourself dearly. So I'm inclined to just match the field, quite frankly, in like an MME scenario.
Please God, let Pavlovich take him down because I love watching Darius Lewis just chuck guys off him. His takedown, his get-up game is the most amusing in the UFC. Just, I'm gonna throw you off me now.
And Lewis had 2 takedowns, or at least one against Tuivasa, I think, right? Which was like an alternate universe in and of itself.
It's weird. That was a weird fight.
Yeah.
Joe, who you got?
So Pavlovich's foundation, by the way, is Greco-Roman wrestling. I like Pavlovich a pretty big deal here, and part of it is, the movement of youth and the fact that I feel he's got, not only the length but also a speed advantage over Lewis. Also, I don't know from the narrative where Lewis's head is at. He has not traditionally fought well at home. He just hasn't. He has not really fought well at home. He's made his money. He's, Mr. Houston. He's got his things. I think he drives a Lamborghini. He's got his things going on. Who is the hungrier fighter? The hungrier fighter is Pavlovich. You could piss all over his competition. I mean, he's fought who they gave him the fight, right? I've not heard, unless you guys know differently, I have not heard of him turning down fights. So I think, by the way, Q's, your ownership was pretty much dead on. Pavlovich is just a notch higher. I am going to be, I'll have shares of Lewis because how can you not, right? With his ability to finish a fight, but I'm going to have more, it's going to be more barbell than less even. So I'm going to have a greater percentage of shares of Pavlovich, who I like a great deal. And then I'll have shares of Lewis, of course, because, he's got that one punch finishing power as well. So my ownership to this fight will probably be at market. It's just the percentages among the two fighters will be slanted more towards Pavlovich.
Fair.
Wrong view. Next fight up, it is time for the co-main event. Brandon Moreno, 8,900. Kai Kara-France, 7,300. Line on the fight. Moreno minus 215. Kai Kara-France plus 185. Man, when I started watching, I'm like, yeah, Brandon Moreno, he's looked better all around. I've never really been high on Kai Kara-France. And I just start thinking, man, if they're out at space, who's the better striker? I think technically it's Kai Kara-France. Can Moreno get takedowns here? Probably took down, Figueiredo a bunch of times in all 3 of their fights. Took down Brandon Royval, who kind of welcomes scrambles. And it's just you don't want to take down Jussier Formiga. I should mention that when Moreno fought Kai Kara-France the first time and beat him, 91 significant strikes, no takedowns, beat him on the feet. And I just said I think Kai Kara-France is the better striker. I still think he's the better technical striker. I think Moreno's the type of awkward guy that a technical guy like Kai Kara-France. This is what I'm kind of talking myself in throughout the week. To me, the matchup feels like one of those. The more time they're in the cage together, the more Kai Kara-France is going to get a chance to figure him out and get his timing. That's just kind of my read on it. It could be way out. And Kai Kara-France is better than he was in 2019. He's looked good against Bontarin, who I rate incredibly highly, and Cody Garbrandt. And the Askarov fight was kind of, is an odd one. Just stay on the feet and strike as best he could. It just, I think everybody's on Moreno, and I want to make this pivot to Kai Kara-France. I will say, I think if Moreno finds a takedown, the terrifying part of this is as soon as he gets a takedown, I'm relatively sure he'll submit Brandon Moreno on the ground. So when I did my initial picks, my first set of picks, I had this fight. I had Brandon Moreno wins round 3 submission. And I keep thinking he doesn't get a takedown. They're on the feet longer and longer. I slowly want to shift my pick to Kai Kara-France wins by split decision. Like just the kind of that dirty fight that Moreno's been in. How am I approaching it for DFS? Well, thankfully, I need some salary savers. I'm more than happy to mix in Kai Kara-France. And where do I have Brandon Moreno? You know what you did last fight? Just kind of wash the field. I think I'm going to wash the field on Moreno and bump myself up on Kai Kara-France a little bit. Because I feel myself, I think I feel myself overthinking it. So I have some other stands I'll take, and I'm just going to, that's where I'm leaning right now. Now, tomorrow, who knows what I'll be thinking. But My official pick for this podcast, because it seems to annoy Joe, I'm going to go Kai France wins by split decision. Joe, you're up first for this fight.
Yeah, so I always have a hard time betting on fighters that come from countries that have more sheep than people. But aside from that,
so you've lost a lot of money in Israel Adesanya?
Yeah, I have. I actually, I like Moreno here a bit. I mean, he beat him last time. There's no reason to think he's not. If anything, he's gotten better. Sorry for the stuttering. Also, a very important camp change here. Very important camp change. Brendan Moreno is with James Krause. James Krause will be in his corner. This was, I believe, James Krause's first title fight. So he will be devoting a good deal of attention to Brendan Moreno here. I love that Moreno, after that last Devison fight, did something to shake things up. Look, they say that it takes a couple of camps to get the benefit from a camp change. I really do think James Krause, just by the way he bets, and if you've ever had a chance to watch him on any of James Lynch's podcasts, he's such a sharp bettor. And I think that translates actually into his coaching. I would have liked Moreno without the camp change. The camp change makes me like him more. I think he's got a really solid floor in cash at 8.9K. I think he's got GPP upside. I really do think that he is an improving fighter. Not to take anything away from KKF. I've never been a KKF guy. I thought he was fortunate to get one of his wins. Was it against Bontarin? But he's looked good recently. I'll give him some props for that. But I do like Moreno a fair amount here. I think he could make this pretty easy. And he could use his grappling and get some takedowns. And he's got James Krause in his ear right now. And I think all that equates to a new champion.
Well, regardless, it's new. Oh yeah, I'll take new for $1 million, please, Alex.
New once again. Let me put it that way. You didn't let me finish. New once again, Brendan Moreno.
RBQ, so you got?
You know where I think he can land those takedowns? I rewatched the first fight, and I just kind of felt like by the time round 3 came around, Moreno looked like he was building a little bit. He certainly was doing, all that swagger stuff that he was doing, kind of like with the hands out like he does.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do? I don't think I think we might see a more mature version of Moreno this time around. I don't think we're going to see a lot of that. But regardless, I mean, it looked like he was building. It looked like Kai France was not wearing the damage particularly well. Those boxing exchanges, I think Moreno's got a reach advantage here. Kai France, I think, tends to struggle with people that are a little bit longer and stay in his face like that. And so these boxing exchanges, if you go back and look at them, I mean, like, Kai France would land 1-2, and then you'd see Moreno boom, 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 but like 4 or 5 straight shots in a row. You would see him start, as the fight went on, start to get the better of those exchanges and certainly cause Kai France, at least in the judges' eyes, to wear it so poorly that it was pretty clear by the end of the fight who you thought was going to win. Now, let's say in this scenario, you got a 5-round fight gets extended. You got to favor in the championship rounds, a guy who's been there countless times. At that point, I could see this takedown defense that we've declared to be stout for Kai France. We saw the Askarov fight. It did, to his credit, look like, he had good takedown. Although I will say, Askarov was so poor in striking in that fight that he couldn't close range and he kept having to launch from a distance. So I didn't feel that it was as difficult or challenging for Kai France to stuff the takedowns. I think in rounds 4 or 5, from a DraftKings perspective, where my head's at on this thing, I think Moreno could land a takedown or 2 as he wants to cement himself on the scorecards and get a convincing win. Look, I'm just not a big Kai France guy. I never really have been. I think he's had a nice run here, but to me, I think Moreno's got the better cardio. I think he's like one of the most durable fighters in the UFC, probably. He's better grappling if it gets there. I tend to think he may not be, from a technical perspective, the better striker, but man, I mean, in these wild dogfight boxing exchanges, I continue to favor him, and I favor his counter boxing as well. So how do I play it on DraftKings is really the question, right? Because I don't think you're going to necessarily be different coming in equal weight or under on Kai France and having a bunch of Brandon Moreno. So that's the point where I'm struggling here, because that's how I feel. I certainly feel like, how do I come under on a fighter that's already going to be low? Or do I just say, you know what, it's a championship fight, anything can happen? In my mind, I just don't think I can go overweight on Kai Kara France just for GPP purposes. And I'm considering coming in extremely low on him. That doesn't mean I'm going to have a ton of Brandon Moreno either. I think when you consider that price range that we've been pounding the table on all night, there's paths to Moreno scoring like a 106 to 108 and somehow not being optimal. I mean, there's a universe where that exists on Saturday night. So you're counting on him if it goes the distance to have a couple takedowns, maybe a couple knockdowns. I don't know that you can project that at a high rate. So I'll probably be field on Moreno or maybe even slightly under, so I can use some of those ownership shares on people in the range that I like, and let it burn me if it comes to it. So.
All right, let's do the main event of the evening. Amanda Nunes, Juliana Pena. Nunes 9,200. Pena 7,000. Nunes minus 275. Pena plus 230. Look, I'm still gonna pick Nunes, but Pena is a way more live dog than I gave her credit the first time. My bad. Nunes, I don't know where her head's at with the cardio issues we saw last time, opening her own gym, like. The cardio issues, and it's not the first time it's popped up, by the way. And Pena called it to a T. I'm going to drag her into a fight, and she's going to fold because she's done it before, and that's exactly what happened. And why do I really think? Am I so convinced that it's going to be different this time? I'm really not. I just think Nunes is the better technical fighter. I think she's got more skill, and that's why I'm picking her. But if Pena is able to successfully turn this into a dogfight without getting finished, and this gets later, it's a real problem. So I'm probably, and I want to take a stand here. This is the fight, and the way what's interesting here is I did a whole thing about analysis of optimal lineups recently, and it's like the main event's only in the optimal lineup about 60% of the time, which is it's way less than you would think. This is a situation, the way they fought the last time, I don't know how this fight doesn't end up on the optimal. They're just going to stand and throw again. Like, Pena's going to go forward and try and smash her. There's not going to be standing and looking at each other. 5 rounds to work with. You can get overweight on both these fighters, and that's probably going to be my plan here. And I don't love that many dogs. I might end up with a little more Nunes, a little more Pena, just because I being more overweight to Pena, I should say. Like, I could see myself 45-55 Nunes Pena. Like, I think this fight ends up in the optimal. This is probably a fight I'm going to go all in on. Joe, you're making a face, but are you going to go 70-30 Nunes? Now you can't play as much COSQUE, Morales, all these guys you want to shove in there. The lineups get more interesting as you can do more things. So I just, and there's enough red flags with Nunes that even though I'm picking her, something tells me Pena's going to win this fight, and I can't bring myself to pick her straight up. I can't do it, but something tells me she's going to win. So, as our guest, RBQ's main event time. Take it away.
This is like a how the heck can you know fight, because I think like we think back to the fight and why did Nunes lose? Because she quit. She had nothing left in the tank. Not because of skill, right? Like, you have to favor her everywhere against Pena.
Everywhere.
Line by line. So she lost because she didn't have anything in the tank and because she flat out quit. That choke was not even locked in that tight, was it? Like, at all?
No. Nope.
How can you know? How can you be sure that Nunes, leaves the camp, goes and starts her own camp, closed doors, really gonna gung-ho, get herself in shape and get that belt back? How can you know? I'm watching, being the consummate husband that I am. Last night was supposed to be date night, but I was just like on YouTube watching Embedded 277. Was
it any good? Should I watch it? I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah. Well, the takeaway I happened to tune in right to a spot where Nunes was getting out of her SUV and the little baby was there. Nina Nunes was with her. And she's talking about how the baby's all her life now. And it's just like not what I want. Sounds ruthless. It's like not what I wanted to see, like I kind of wanted I sort of wish she let the kid at home. I mean, it's like I feel like she's in that mindset still where, and how couldn't she be? I mean, she's the GOAT, isn't she? Like, she's done it all. She's made a ton of money. What's she really going to be motivated to lock down her cardio? And then even if she is she going to come back and deliver on that 100%? Like maybe she gasses out in the third round in this particular case. Like, is she going to all of a sudden have amazing 5-round cardio to go the distance with Pena, who's going to be ruthless and stay in her face? So I don't know. And I'm going to play a ton of both these fighters. I'm leaning towards playing an equal amount of both of them, to be fair. I'm getting the current champ, who we just saw win, who's hungrier at this stage, for $7K on DraftKings. Really hard to pass that up, man. And like you can go back. You don't have to just point to the last fight to have concerns with Amanda Nunes, like the Jermaine Durandamy fight.
That was dicey. That was real dicey. People forget.
No, I'm going to bring it up. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, I'll let you get to it because I'm going to. There's so many things I want to cover on this fight, but at the end of the day, look. I mean, from a DraftKings perspective, I think Pena is going to be 30% at least. I might have more. I feel like the spot is too good, and for all the people picking Nunes, you just better hope that she got it together because she is better at every level, and I think her win condition, I think, is get her out of there in the first round, like finish the fight early again.
It's the same as it was last time. She just got to do it. It's MMA. It could happen.
It can happen because she did. I think it was a 10-8 round. Like, I'm pretty sure. Like, she smashed Pena in the first round, and so yeah. But it's hard to know. How can you know? You're not behind closed doors, so we're guessing a little bit. And what we do have to go on is a $7K price tag on the current champion.
All right, Joe. Tell us why we're all in a Nunes and passing up all these other guys.
I'm not saying all in on Nunes. I mean, look, it was criminal that Pena was only 4% owned. Like, I'm not sure. I know I was higher than that. I can't recall what I was, but I know I was higher than 4%. Look, you want a hot take? Pena is an above average fighter. That's pretty much it. I mean, Jermaine Durandamy, a Muay Thai world champion with very limited wrestling chops, got 3 takedowns. Nico Montana, 2 takedowns. I think the tragic mistake that Nunes made was, well, one, she had a bad game plan, bad fight IQ. If she couldn't finish her standing, that took a lot of gas. She should go right for the takedown, ride her out, control time. It's a lot easier on the ground. It's less taxing. Once you get that takedown, and we know that she could be taken down, it's less taxing. I think that is what has to happen, right? Would it surprise me? Now, I mean, you asked me to mention the camp change. So Amanda Nunes has left ATT and went to her own camp. Now, this is a strategy that Valentina does. Valentina does not go to big name camps. She has her own camps. They're built around her. Very hard to get anything out of what's happening there because it's a private camp, right? Now, if you ask me, who do I want to hang out at the beach with or at a pool? It's definitely Juliana Pena. I appreciate the fact that Nunes likes to wear tablecloths to support our waiters and waitresses. But if you ask me who I want as a fighter, who is better in every aspect of MMA, it's Nunes. Now, if Nunes has any pride, she should be highly embarrassed about that last performance, right? Now, do you want to have the legacy of having gone out to a far inferior fighter, not once, but twice, right? I don't see it. I don't see it. Money aside, issue aside, I'm going to be underweight to Pena. Obviously, at her price, I'm going to have shares of her. I'm not going to have 30%. I'm not sure where I'm going to fall, but it's going to be less than that. And then we'll see. But I like Nunes a fair amount here. I like her in tournaments. I like her in cash. I just again, this is me, and maybe I'm going to fall on my shield, and people are going to say, you're an idiot for not playing more Pena. But I'm going to be very heavy weighted to Nunez, and I like enough people at 7.1 and 7.2 and 7.5 and 7.6 that I'm still going to get the exposure I want to Nunez and not have what I consider garbage lineups. So there you go.
All right, guys, we need hot takes. If you got them in chat, drop them right now. Something unexpected you think will happen tomorrow night. Before we go to that, go to rotowire.com/free 10-day free trial to all their premium content. Excuse me, no credit card. Excuse me, geez, required. I'm not coughing to that because it's not fake. I'm just it's been an hour and a half show, guys. Hot takes. Who's got them?
I do. I got one. Okay, so
Fire
this
away.
is my again, this is a parlay. And these are 4 fighters I like whose last name ends in a vowel. Okay? So it's 4 fighters I like whose last name ends in a vowel. I got ORION Corsi, minus 215. I got NIkolai Negomaranu, minus 120. I got Rafa Garcia, plus 185. And I got Brandon Moreno, minus 215. That 4-fighter parlay pays 10 to 1. So again,
you get the plus 180 fighter in there.
Just to recap: Corsi, Negomaranu, Garcia, and Moreno. 10 to 1. There you go.
Yikes. All right, that's a big payout for sure. I'm gonna go with my hot take will be I had one queued up, and now I'm debating it. Let's go with I wanted to be surprising, and I got nothing now. Yeah, one queued up. Q's. You ready? Well, I
don't. I think
retract.
I got like a lukewarm take, maybe. First and foremost, if you like Ji Young Kim, you can get a majority or split decision plus 800 on. I'm looking at DK Sportsbook at the moment. Like, I might take a sliver on that. I don't hate that. I like the notion that neither of the championship fight favorites end up on the optimal, but Juliana Pena does.
So, I mean, with the Pena win, that's
and that's not crazy, but like that's the universe.
I like it. I'll take that. Neither of the main event favorites end up on the optimal. That's a pretty hot take. We're gonna go with. I'm gonna say that. Matthew Semelsberger, 60-second bonus.
Wow.
I love that take.
Throw out there.
Love that take.
I think he's gonna go out aggressive. Moreno's gonna get hit, and we're gonna see what happens. So I think there'll be some aggression there. From the crowd, Zero Miedo, Alves by club and sub. Did say that was a potential path to victory. Calling it out. I like it. Our buddy Ryan, Alex Perez, 100 plus DK points.
Doable.
I mean, I like that one. That is 100% one that I like.
Thank you, Ryan.
High ceiling, low floor.
By the way, for those that don't know, Ryan is graciously he manages the season-long DraftKings contest. Ryan's the guy. He's the man. Thank you, Ryan. We've had some we've had some bad behavior in that contest in the past, and Ryan.
Wait, I ran it for 3 years, but it's too much.
No. Well, you know who I'm talking about. Bad behavior.
Yeah. Before me.
Yeah. So before Sean. So
I revived it and passed it off.
And Ryan is also the racing analyst for Daily Fan MMA. So thank you.
Yes,
Ryan.
he does a different one than I did. I passed off mine to somebody else, but it's good job there. So thank you, Ryan, and thank you, RBQs, for joining us. It was fun. We'll do it again. Sometime. And
thanks for the invite, guys. I had a lot of fun and had a couple.
Man.
Had a couple takes altered along the way. It was great to hear you guys' perspectives, and with under 24 hours to go here, I got some things to tweak maybe a little bit after. So,
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little time off now, run out and get some Mega Millions tickets.
Yeah, that's good.
But they're $1 billion, and then maybe watch a little TV, and then what do we got? What time? What's the start time tomorrow? Is it
6 p.m.
Pay-per-view.
Okay. So I got all day tomorrow then to work on. I don't, I usually wait until Saturday to do my lineups, and because those late changes are just killers. you know,
Sure.
to have to go in and adjust lineup. So I got all my contests reserved though. So we're all set, baby.
Yep.
Everybody, good luck in those contests. Yeah, it's not Larkin. Yeah, Ryan Barton isn't Larkin. You confused me, Joe.
Oh shit. Sorry, Ryan. I confused Ryan.
I was like, what are we talking about?
Oh, sorry, Ryan. Sorry,
Ryan Larkin. You know what? Everybody, I want you to go.
Ryan Barton. I did not get much sleep last night. I'll be honest. Like I did not get a lot of sleep, so I apologize.
Ryan, you need to go tweet Joe.
Oh shit!
Say something. Throw him on Twitter. Joe, retweet it, and everybody, you need to go and follow Ryan Barton because
I'm never
that was
gonna
just
forget.
egregious.
Follow Ryan Barton, please.
Follow him right now.
That was egregious.
I'm
And you
so
know what? He
sorry.
threw me off, and I just rolled with it.
You
I
did,
was
man.
I was like, I'm just going.
You bought into the lie, and you just
I
freaking
did.
rolled with it.
I did. And on that note, guys, clearly nullifying all of Joe's takes for this entire podcast. We wish you good luck in your contest. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Take care.